Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the possessor of vast, all-encompassing mercy, the bestower of specific, special mercy for the believers. وَبِهِ أَسْتَعِينَ. And with Him alone, subhanahu wa ta'ala, do I seek assistance. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ الْعَلِيِّ الْعَظِيمِ. There is no might nor assistance or ability to change from one circumstance to another without the help of Allah al-Ali al-Azim, the most high and lofty, the one who is tremendous and magnificent. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Our praise belongs to Allah, the nurturing Lord of all that exists. والصلاة والسلام على من بعثه الله رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. May Allah raise the rank and honor and grant security to the one that He sent as a mercy for the worlds, our Prophet Muhammad, and upon his family and his companions. Amma ba'du, as for what follows. And we continue with our study of Aqeedah ar-Raazeeyayn, the Aqeedah of the two Razis, or some say Aqeedah al-Raazeeyayn, and the Aqeedah of the more than two Razis, because this is a creed that is reported by Abdurrahman, Abu Muhammad Abdurrahman ibn Abi Hatim, the great scholar of Hadith, who was raised in the custody of his father and his uncle Abu Hatim al-Razi and Abu Zur'a al-Razi, who were Rahalun fi talab al-Hadith, people who traveled, who literally rabba'u dunya, squared the dunya or circled the dunya in pursuit of a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, traveling through the territories and the lands throughout the duration of their life. And so this creed is reported from Abdurrahman ibn Abi Hatim, from his father Abu Hatim and Abu Zur'a, and what they found the scholars upon in the Hijaz, and meaning in Mecca and Medina, and in Iraq, and in Asham, and in the Amsar al-Muslimin. And they were scholars who lived, and their home base was al-Ray, which is from the cities of Khurasan, and of modern day Iran, before it was Darul Rafd, before it was a land of the Shiite Rawafid. It was a land more than 1,000 years ago of the Sunnah, before the Mongol invasions and the destruction of the cities in the land Ma Wara al-Nahr, behind the Jihun River, like Bukhara and Naysabur and those sorts of lands, all the way to Baghdad and beyond. These were cities that were built upon the Sunnah of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when the people started to innovate in creed, in the fundamentals of the religion, what is believed about Allah and His attributes and who He is and why He deserves to be worshipped, subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more this became commonplace, the weaker Islam became with those people, to the point that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests them with such a calamity as the calamities of the Crusades and the calamities of the Mongol invasions. And so these two great Imams, rahmatullahi alayhima, started to see the beginning stages of that in their lives. The great Imam Abu Hatim al-Razi said that in the Jami' of al-Ray, and in the main masjid of al-Ray, of the city that they lived, the people will come together. The people will come together of the various religions, Jew, Christian, philosopher, whatever, the various persuasions, various creeds, and they would say that we are going to come together وَنَتَحَكَّمُ الْعَقْلِ, and we are going to judge by the aql, and we're not going to mention anything from our scriptures. We're not going to mention anything from our scriptures. We're just going to say what is completely logical. This is something that happened in their time. And they died in the middle 3rd century, around the year 240 and 270 respectively. So more than 1,000 years have passed, and the Muslims have taken this approach of giving priority to what they think is logical and what they think is intelligence, without understanding that the most intelligent of speech, the wisest of speech, the most precise of speech is the speech of their Lord, Rabbil Alameen. And this approach to the religion in general and the affairs of creed in particular is from the most destructive of things. And we heard the other day the belief of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the first issue of the book, Al-Iman qawlun wa amal yazidu wa yanqus. Iman is statement and action. It increases and decreases. And the different positions of the Muslims, any of those yantasibun al-Islam, and who said that they were Muslims in their early generations, and some of the early generations were ila yawmina hadha, and up until today, pertaining Iman. And some of them saying that Iman increases but it doesn't decrease. Some saying that Iman shay'un wahid is one single thing, which is just belief and profession of the tongue. Some of them saying it's just belief in the heart without even professing with the tongue. And the person who does that, and he is mu'min kamilul iman, mustakminul iman. This person is a complete believer with the belief that is the same as the belief of Jibril and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No difference between them. A statement that should make the skin of a person shudder. And to think that a people will believe such a heinous belief concerning the reality of faith. And faith, as we heard, is something that is, and there are many different levels between people. And there are 3 general levels of believers, and for each level there are many various levels between the people of a single level. And even the people on a single level are steadily seeking an increase, and it is possible for the person who is from the mu'minun al-kummal, those people who are upon a complete level of faith, and he from the sabiqun, and he from those people that rush and race to the good, that are from the allies of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. It is possible for those people to increase in certainty and to increase in goodness so long as they are living. Just like it is possible for the person who is dhalimun li nafsihi, who is wronging himself by not carrying out the obligations and by shamelessly committing any acts of disobedience, to sink even lower in sinfulness. And so, without a doubt, Iman, which is a collective term for the entire religion, consisting of the belief of the heart, the intention of the heart and its actions, the statement of the tongue and the actions of the limbs, is something that is on many levels between the people. The second issue that we arrive at today is pertaining to Qur'an. And this is something that is munasib. The first issue is Iman and its increase and decrease. The second issue is the Qur'an and its reality. The Qur'an and its reality, there is nothing whatsoever, absolutely, in existence that has more effect on the increase of Iman than reciting the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bitadabburi wa tafahum, and with contemplation and with a attempt to understand it to the best of one's ability. And so to mention this issue after the reality of faith and what is believed by Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah pertaining faith and its composite parts and its increase and its decrease, to mention the reality of the belief of Ahl Sunnah about the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very appropriate. He says, وَالْقُرْآنُ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ غَيْرُ مَخْلُوقٍ بِجَمِيعِ جِهَاتِهِ. This is going to be a detailed class, and we encourage you to take notes on your devices or something other than your brain. Take more than just mental notes. The Qur'an is the speech of Allah, غَيْرُ مَخْلُوقٍ. It is the uncreated speech of Allah. It is the uncreated speech of Allah. بِجَمِيعِ جِهَاتِهِ. In every way that a person can state that. In every way that a person can state that. The Qur'an is the uncreated speech of Allah بِجَمِيعِ جِهَاتِهِ. In every way. It is the speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. The Shaykh Ahmed ibn Yahya al-Najmi rahimahullahu wa jazahu Allahu anna khayr al-jaza. May Allah have mercy upon him and reward him on our behalf of the tremendous reward. He says, كون القرآن كلام الله غير مخلوق عليه أدلة من كتاب الله. The fact and the reality of the Qur'an being the uncreated speech of Allah has evidence from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. طبعا, without a doubt. And Aqeedah is tawqifiyya. It's something that is derived directly from the speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, from the statements of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. لِقَوْلِهِ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى, due to the statement of Allah, exonerated is He from defect and imperfection, exalted the Most High, when He said, وَإِنْ أَحَدٌ مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ اسْتَجَارَكَ فَأَجِرْهُ حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ. In Surah At-Tawbah, verse number 6, Allah says that if any of the mushrikeen استجارك, and he seek your protection, and he seek a covenant of protection and non-aggression from you, meaning from those that have shown hostility towards you, فَأَجِرْهُ, and he then grant him protection, حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامِ اللَّهِ, so that he can hear the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that he can hear the what? The speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is the speech of Allah in this verse? The Qur'an. وَهُنَاكَ آيَاتٌ أُخْرَى فِي هَذَا الْمَعْنَى. And there are other verses that contain this meaning, and we'll come to hear them inshallah. قوله رحمة الله عليه بجميع جهاته, يعني إذا لفظ في اللسان وإذا كتب بالتروس. والتروس جمع ترس, وهو صحيفة تمحى ثم تكتب فيها ويكتب فيها. He says that the Qur'an, in every way, when it is recited, it is still called the speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. When a person recites it, the Qur'an is still called the speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. And when it is written, and whatever it is written upon, it is still called the speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. This was a linguistic attempt at mental gymnastics that was played by the people of innovation. And it's very important to understand a principle that is connected to this. And whether he said that the Qur'an is the speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, but my recitation of the Qur'an is created. My recitation, lafzi bil Qur'an makhluq, they said. My recitation of the Qur'an is created. Or they said when the Qur'an is written in book form, it is not the speech of Allah, but it is something created. And this is just a plot and an attempt to divert people away from the reality of the issue, which is that the Qur'an is the uncreated speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. And so this statement is muhtamal. It could have a true meaning and could have a false meaning, that my recitation of the Qur'an is something created. What did the scholars say about a person who says that statement? They say he's a mubtadi'. He's an innovator. Why? Because his statement is ambiguous. And our religion is built upon what? Upon clarity. Especially as regards the fundamentals of creed. Our religion is built upon clarity. Ibn Qayyim, he said in his Nuniyah, فَعَلَيْكَ بِالْبَيَانِ وَالتَّفْصِيلِ فإن الإجمال والعموم دون البيان قد أفسد هذا الموجود وخبط الأذهان والآراء كل زمان. He said, it is upon you, imperative, mandatory upon you, to be detailed and to clarify things, to be clear in what you say. For verily ijmal wal umum, overgeneralizing things and vagueness without bringing clarity, قد أفسد هذا الموجود, has destroyed the entire world that we live in, has destroyed the entirety of existence, ruined and corrupted. He said, وَخَبَّطَ, and these two things, al-ijmal wal-umum, being overly vague and overgeneralizing, has caused the people to stumble as regards their adhan and their ara, as regards their minds and as regards their opinion, kulla zamanin, in every era of time. In every era of time. So this is something extremely important from two aspects. One, the lafdiyah, those who try to take a course where they wouldn't be in hot water with the Mu'tazila, who had authority, who were qudat and wulat. They were judges, and they were governors, and they were people of authority. And they made imtihan. They made an imtihan for the people of Sunnah as regards their belief in the Qur'an. And they said that the Qur'an is created. In Kitab al-Hida, its author mentioned that the people of Sunnah in that time who had strength, and then they were protected. And they were protected, but they were in danger. And the people who were mustad'afun, who were vulnerable, they were kidnapped, abducted, and murdered in the nawahi of the city of Baghdad. They were taken out to the countryside and slaughtered like sheep for rejecting the statement of the Mu'tazila. It was a severe time. And a person, when they are threatened because of their religion, what do? Do they just bow and say a statement of kufr? What do? You stay firm and speak the truth. If a person says, I need to utter a statement of kufr, I'll kill you. What can a person do? They can utter that statement to save their lives, to save their skins, right? What if a person just says, I'm going to kill you because of what you believe? And doesn't make that shart. Or he says, I'm going to torture, I'm going to beat you. And that beating may kill you. The scholars, they say in that situation that the person, يُؤْذَى فِي اللَّهِ وَكُلُّ مَنْ أُذِيَ فَلَا أُقُتِلْ فَهُوَ مَنْصُورٌ وَلَوْ بَعْدَ حِينٍ. And he has to take the abuse. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala protect us, give us afiyah and salama from ever being tested because of our faith. But it's a serious situation. Some people in that time, they said, I can get the heat off of me by just saying a statement that's ambiguous. يَحْتَمِلُ مَعْنَيَيْن. And it has two possible meanings, right? It could mean that I believe that the Qur'an itself, what is being recited, which is the Qur'an, and maqru', and what is being recited, is created. It could have that meaning. Or it could have the meaning of my action of reciting the Qur'an is created, which is true. So there are two things involved in this issue. One, the issue of ambiguity. Two is the issue of khidlan and haqq. This person is mukhaddil. This person has forsaken the truth. He has refused to support the truth. And he is from the most dangerous of the creation in that case. Why? Because the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, لا تزال طائفة من أمتي على الحق منصورة. There will never cease to be a group from my nation that are victorious upon the truth, meaning the people of haqq, the people of sunnah. لا يضرهم من خذلهم ولا من خالفهم. Those that خذلهم, those people, the people of khidlan, the people who refuse to support and help them, can never harm them. Those people who turn their backs and don't support the people of sunnah and don't stand up for the sake of truth. It's a tremendous statement. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said in his book Madarij al-Salikin, in his section Manzilatul Ghurba, the section about the station of strangeness in religion, a person being a stranger in his religion. He said rahimahullah ta'ala that he said وَمَا قُوَّةُ أَهْلِ الْبَاطِلِ إِلَّا مِنْ ضَعْفِ أَهْلِ الْحَقِّ. That what is the strength of the people of falsehood except because of the weakness of the people of truth. So the weaker the people of truth are, and the more they withhold from supporting the truth with that which they have in their capability, the more that emboldens and strengthens the people of falsehood. So instead of trying to counterbalance and fight against falsehood in order to weaken it with that which is in their disposal, we're not talking about raising a militia and so on and so forth. We're talking about النطق بالحق, just uttering the truth, manning up and speaking the truth, right? In this sort of situation, these people, they fell into those two things. The first was khidlan, they forsook the people of truth. They turned their backs on the people of truth. They did not aid the people of truth. And they fell into the second issue that's mentioned in the hadith. لا يضرهم من خذلهم ولا من خالفهم. They will not be forsaken by those who forsake them, refuse to help them, or by those who oppose them. Because it's not the belief of Ahl Sunnah. لفظي بالقرآن مخلوق. As a statement of ihtimal, it's a statement of confusion. And it's to the extent our scholars say that the person who speaks with ambiguous phraseology as regards the affairs of creed that are crystal clear like this, that he is more dangerous than the person who is upon open batil. He's more dangerous than the person who's upon open batil. Because the person who comes with that audacious of a statement and just comes right out to the point that it was reported by the scholars of hadith in their books that it was heard from Jahm ibn Safwan that he said about the statement of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, Laysa kamithlihi shay, and the same is reported about Bishr and Marisi, that he said that I wish that I could rip this verse out of the Mus'haf. Laysa kamithlihi shay wa huwa as-sami'ul basir. There is nothing like Allah, and He is the all-hearing and the all-hearing. He is the all-hearing and the all-seeing, subhanahu wa ta'ala. To the point that one of the scholars had a dream that he saw Ja'ad ibn Dirham ripping pages out of the Qur'an. Ripping pages out of the Qur'an. And he said, Malik, what are you doing? And he says, okay, I'm going to put it back. And then he tried to put them back and they wouldn't fit, they wouldn't go together. He said, I can't do it. This person is what? يَنْقُضُ عُرَّ الْإِسْلَامِ عُرْوَةً عُرْوَةً. Dismantling Islam. One issue after another after another. If the core of Islam is creed and belief about Allah, Tabarak wa Ta'ala, when you take the affairs of creed and you cast them to the side and you make them non-issues and you make them trivialities and things that, oh, yani wajhatul nadar, and everybody has different perspectives, then what have you done? Then you have helped in the dismantling of Islam. Wallahi, the scholars of hadith, Fudail ibn Iyadh, he said, Man athna ala sahibi bid'ah faqad a'ana ala hadm al-Islam. Whoever praises an innovator has aided in the destruction of Islam. One of the Salaf, he said, Man safaha mubtari'an. Whoever shakes the hand of an innovator, فقد أعان على هدم الإسلام. ومن صافح مبتدع فقد نقض عروة الإسلام عروة عروة. He said, whoever shakes the hand of an innovator has dismounted Islam himself. He has dismounted Islam himself. It's a serious affair. It's a serious affair. The affairs of creed are the core of the religion. The Qur'an is the uncreated speech of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. And the person who tries to explain that away or phrase it in such a way and to make themselves look that they're advanced or that they've reached some type of moderation. Think about that. The people came later after the Imams of the Sunnah and they came up with these sorts of phrases. The scholars of the Sunnah had ijma' about them. What is reported in the books is ijma', is the consensus of the scholars. Some people, دُونَهُمْ فِي الْمَرْتَبَةِ مِمَّنْ جَعَ بَعْدَهُمْ. People who are less than them in status, who came after them, جُلُّهُمْ لَيْسُ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ. The vast majority were not from Ahlul Ilm aslan. Came after them and second-guessed them and put themselves out as moderates. When you say that, then what are you saying about them? If you say that you are upon the wasat, that this is a statement that's more moderate, this is a statement that's more easily digestible, and so on and so forth, this is a statement that's not going to ruffle any feathers, then by saying that, then you are saying that they are people of extremism. You are saying that their statement, as was stated by the Asha'ira later on, what did they say? Madhab al-Salaf, what did they say? The madhab of the Salaf is aslam, is safer. وَمَذْهَبُ الْخَلَفْ أَعْلَمُ وَأَحْكَمُ لَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. They said that the madhab, of the way of the earliest generations, was safest. They were trying to be safe in what they said, so they didn't want to go away from the text at all. They didn't want to compromise at all as regards the apparent meanings of the text. They said, but the way of the latter generations who came after that was a'lam wa ahkam, was more knowledge based and more wise. Allahu Akbar. Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali rahimahullah ta'ala wrote an entire book refuting this statement called Fadlu ilm al-salaf ala al-khalaf. The superiority of the knowledge of the salaf over that which the khalaf were upon. It's a tremendous affair. This is the belief of the scholars of Islam, that the Qur'an is a speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, the uncreated, revealed speech of Allah. Two things here, uncreated and munazzal. The uncreated, revealed speech of Allah. Munazzal, revealed meaning sent down. So there are a couple issues of creed there. One, that Allah tabarak wa ta'ala is above His creation. Right? That Allah tabarak wa ta'ala is above His creation. And two, that He sent His speech down upon the heart of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and the hearts of the prophets and the messengers before him alayhim as-salatu was-salam. فائدة قال شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية رحمه الله تعالى. شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية رحمه الله تعالى, he said in Aqeedah al-Wasitiyya, ومن الإيمان بالله وكتبه, and from the belief in Allah and His books, الإيمان بأن القرآن كلام الله منزل غير مخلوق, is the belief that the Qur'an is an uncreated, revealed speech of Allah sent down. Minhu bada'a wa ilayhi ya'ud. Minhu bada'a, it began with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, originated from Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. And it is the original speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, wa ilayhi ya'ud. And it will remain eternally with Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning when it is taken from the hearts of the people and the Qur'an is removed from the earth before the final hour, it will always be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it will be His speech. وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ تَكَلَّمَ بِهِ حَقِيقَةً, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke the Qur'an literally. وَأَنَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ الَّذِي أَنزَلَهُ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ هُوَ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ حَقِيقَةً لَا كَلَامُ غَيْرِهِ. And the Qur'an that He sent down upon Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the literal speech of Allah and not the speech of anyone else. وَلَا يَجُوزُ إِطْلَاقُ الْقَوْلِ بِأَنَّهُ حِكَايَةٌ عَنْ كَلَامِ اللَّهِ. And it is not permissible to say that the Qur'an is a hikayah an kalamillah, that the Qur'an is a rendering of the speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. Or ibarah, or that the Qur'an is an expression of Allah's speech. بل إذا قرأه الناس أو كتبوه في المصاحف. But rather, when the people recite it, or when it is written in the masahif, لم يخرج بذلك عن أن يكون كلام الله تعالى حقيقة. And it does not remove it from being the speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala literally. It does not remove it from being the speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala literally. It is still the speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. When the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wrote letters to the kings of the earth, when he wrote letters to the kings of the earth, and the letters reached the kings of the earth, did it establish a hujjah upon them or not? Was the proof established upon them or not? He called them to Islam, right? Could they come thereafter and say, oh, well, this isn't really the speech of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam because I didn't hear with my ears? If it's written, what is it? The speech of the one who spoke it, right? If somebody else repeats it, verbatim, word for word, whose speech is it? The speech of the one who uttered it. So when a person recites the Qur'an, they are reciting the speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. And when the Qur'an is written in the Mus'haf, it is still the speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. He said, فَإِنَّ الْكَلَامَ إِنَّمَا يُضَافُ حَقِيقَةً إِلَى مَنْ قَالَهُ مُبْتَدِئًا. Because speech is attributed to the one who uttered it, who spoke it originally. لَا إِلَى مَنْ قَالَهُ مُبَلِّغًا مُؤَدِّيًا. Not to the one who conveyed it and reported it. وَهُوَ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ حُرُوفُهُ وَمَعَانِيهِ. Ibn Taymiyyah said, it is the speech of Allah, its letters and its meanings. Its letters and its meanings. لَيْسَ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ الْحُرُوفُ دُونَ الْمَعَانِي. The people, they came and they tried to disassemble this issue from every direction that you could imagine. They said that Allah has speech, some of them, that Allah has speech. But what we have is mimicking of the speech of Allah, hikayah of the speech of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Some of them said Allah has speech, but it is an ibarah. It is an expression of the speech of Allah. It's really the same thing that they said. But they actually fought over the issue. Is it a hikayah or ibarah? It's a clash between the Kullabi and the Asha'ira. Right? Some of them later they came and they said Allah has kalam, but it doesn't have a sawt, it doesn't make a sound. Allah's speech doesn't make a sound. When Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, this comes in a hadith of Adi ibn Hatim, that Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala on the Day of Judgment will speak to His slave. لَيْسَ بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَهُ تُرْجُمَانٍ. There is not going to be an interpreter between the slave and Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. مَا مِنْكُم مِّنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا سَيُكَلِّمُهُ رَبُّهُ. There's not a single one of you except that his Lord will speak directly to him. لَيْسَ بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَهُ تُرْجُمَانٍ. It's not an interpreter between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Can you imagine taking what they said here, that Allah speaks but His speech doesn't make a sound? This is kalam without, this is speech that is illogical, it is stupid. So they try to make themselves sound sophisticated. As Khattabi, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said in his book, Dhammul Kalam wa Ahlihi. He said this was a fitna that happened in those times. That people said that the knowledge of the people of As-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, particularly about Aqeedah, it is Aqeedatul Ajaiz. It's the Aqeedah of old women. Even old ladies can understand it. But this is the Aqeedah of the Khawas. We understand what's really going on. We the elites. They wanted something that was shadh, something that was strange and odd. Because if they knew what everybody else knew, then they would just be normal people. But if they knew something that everybody else was like, wow, man, look at how bright his stove is. Look at how big his turban is. Right? Look at all of the words that he says in Arabic that we don't understand what he's saying is. This guy is amiq. This guy's deep. This guy is deep. Wow. Think how many people on the face of the earth alive today are destroyed because they don't want something simple in their belief system. They don't want something easy to understand. They want something that's just mind-shattering, literally. Right? Give a person a mental breakdown because it doesn't mean anything. This is what al-Khattabi said. He said these people, they came and they had ujub. They had astonishment with themselves. The first of the Mu'tazila, Muhammad ibn Ubayd and Wasil ibn Ata. Wasil ibn Ata, right? Both of them were students of Al-Hasan al-Basri. Think about this. Both of them were students of Al-Hasan al-Basri and Al-Qadi Abu Yusuf, right? They were students of the Imams of Hadith from the Kibar al-Tabi'een, from the best of the students of the Sahaba. Just like those who killed Uthman had learned the Qur'an directly from the companions of the Prophet. It doesn't mean a hill of beans. If a person innovates and he changes from the belief system or his teacher was upon, it doesn't mean anything, right? Wasil ibn Ata had a lisp. Think about this. They said the man was so eloquent. He had a lisp, he could have pronounced the Ra, the letter Ra. He was so eloquent, he was able to speak for hours at a time and choose his words so carefully that he never chose a single word that had a Ra in it. They said on one occasion he spoke with some words and he said, Wallahi, Allah could not have sent an angel from the sky يَتَكَلَّمْ بِأَحْسَنَ مِمَا قُلْتُ, who could have uttered something better than what I just said. Al-ujub, muhlik, destructive, astonishment. This man was astonished with himself. Ilm does what? Knowledge of the sunnah. It breaks a person down, it humbles a person. It puts a person at his level. The person is affected in his character. The person is affected in his statements. The person is affected in his dress. And the moment that knowledge starts to make a person pompous and arrogant and think that he's better than other people, we heard in the khutbah earlier, the belief of the Muslim. The belief of the Muslim. And he is fearful for the best of the Muslims and hopeful for the worst of them. And he is more hopeful for the rest of the Muslims than he is for himself. and more fearful for the rest of the Muslims than he is for himself, and he is more hopeful for the rest of the Muslims than he is for himself, and more fearful for himself than he is for the rest of the Muslims. Wahab ibn Munabbih, he said, لا يعبد الله بمثل العقل. العاقل يخرج من بيته فلا يلقاه أحد إلا يرى أنه دونه. Wahab ibn Munabbih, who was from the Tabaqat al-Wusta, and he from the intermediary level of the second generation of Muslims. He said that nothing comparable to intelligence, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not worshipped with anything comparable to intelligence. He said the intelligent person leaves from his home and does not encounter a single Muslim except that he believes that that Muslim he comes across is better than him. He doesn't come across a single Muslim. Think how far we are, all of us are from that, right? If a person really believed that they would never backbite anybody, if a person really believed that they would never be astonished with themselves, if a person really understood, as al-Ajuri rahimahullah ta'ala reported the statements of the Salaf in his book Adab al-Nufus, Disciplining the Souls, that the Salaf al-Salih, they said, يَجِبُ عَلَى الْعَاقِلِ, it is mandatory for the intelligent person أن ينظر إلى الناس ويمقتهم لله ثم ينظر إلى نفسه ويكون لها أشد مقتا. It is mandatory for a person to look at the situation of the people and despise them for the sake of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. Despise and loathe the people. What he sees of shamelessness from the people. And then he looks at himself and despises himself even more. And he looks at himself and despises himself even more. Dislikes himself even more. Right? So this is the beginning of the end. And these people, this is like bookmarks, any parentheses between the fitna of the Mu'tazila. The beginning of the fitna of the Mu'tazila in the time of Amr bin Ubayd. Think about Amr bin Ubayd and Wasil ibn Ata. We just heard about Wasil ibn Ata and his arrogance. Amr bin Ubayd, and Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala, he said about Amr ibn Ubayd, he said Amr ibn Ubayd, Sayyid al-Shabab, ما رأيت أحدا يشبه ظاهره باطنه وباطنه ظاهره إلا هذا الفتى. He said, Amr ibn Ubayd is the best of all of the youth of Islam alive on the earth today. Before what? Before he innovated. I never saw a man whose inside matches outside and whose outside matches inside. A person meaning who had more genuineness. A person that when you saw him and you saw him speak, you said, this person right here, this person is upon the truth. This person means what he says and says what he means. What did the Salaf say? They said that if you are going, مَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مُسْتَنًّا, if any of you are going to take anyone as a role model to pattern themselves after, فَلْيَسْتَنَّ بِمَنْ قَادْ مَاتٍ, then let him do that with somebody who has died already. فَإِنَّ الْحَيْلَ تُؤْمَنُ عَلَيْهِ الْفِتَنِ. A person who is alive is not safe from trials and tribulations that will lead him astray. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, he said in his book Kitab al-Iman al-Awsat, he said, may Allah have mercy upon him, he said that the more a person has of ilm and ibadah, the more a person has of knowledge and worship, the stronger the waswasa of the shaitan will be for that person. The more the shaitan is going to unleash an attack against that person. To misguide him, so that other people will be deluded by him. Al-Awza'i rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, don't be deceived. He said, Inna shaytan la yakhluq bayna sahibi bid'a wa bayna husnul khuluq liyughtarra bihi. The great Imam of Damascus, Al-Awza'i rahimahullah ta'ala, he said the shaitan leaves off the innovator when it comes to good character. When it comes to good character, the shaitan is attacking the Muslims. He wants the people to use khushun, to use harshness and abrasiveness and run each other away and do things to get under each other's skins and get on each other's nerves and so on and so forth. But the people of innovation, hush bush, right? You know, it's people that are very cordial, accommodating, so on and so forth. But what they're saying from their mouth is poison. Allah. So this man, he was a founder of the Mu'tazila, Amr bin Ubayd, he was praised by Al-Hasan al-Basri. Allah have mercy on him. This is the beginning of his life. He was praised by a scholar, recommended by scholars. At the end of his life, what was his situation? He became astonished with himself. He didn't want to be upon something that everybody else was upon. He wanted to show that he was sophisticated. He wanted to show that he had some type of, deepness with him that nobody else was upon. He was bored with the simplicity of the creed of the Sunnah. So he innovated many affairs, and from them is this innovation that the Qur'an is that the Qur'an is created. That the Qur'an is created. This was the case in his time. By the end of his life, what was the statements of the scholars about him? He was in the time of what? In the time of the Tabi'een. What did his scholars say? Or what did these scholars rather, and who came after his scholars say about him? On one occasion, a man came to Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala, and he asked him a question, an improper question about Aqeedah. Something that there's no basis for in the Book of Allah, the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This right here is the cause of destruction, right? People are asking questions about what doesn't benefit them. Asking questions just for intellectual curiosity about affairs of creed, not to move the heart with it, not to be affected by it, but just to ask some silly question. Like the man who asked Imam Malik on another occasion, and how did Allah raise above his throne? Malaka, what in the world does that have to do with you? And you're coming closer to Allah, and you're improving in your religion, and you're fearing Allah more, loving Allah more, relying upon Allah more, and so on and so forth. What does it have to do with anything? Why would you ask that question? We mentioned the other day, every issue of creed is an issue of what? Issue of action, and every issue of action is an action of creed. The purpose of everything that has been, think about the Prophet ﷺ. When the Prophet ﷺ went on the Isra and Mi'raj, مَا زَاغَ الْبَصَرُ وَمَا طَغَى. The Prophet ﷺ didn't look at anything on the night of Isra and Mi'raj except what he was instructed to look at. Think about that. The Prophet ﷺ only looked at what he was instructed to look at. Because what he saw on that night, he knew he was going to have to convey to the people. So if he saw things, that may be, the Prophet ﷺ, there's a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, that you never say any speech that doesn't reach the minds of the people, except that it will be a fitna for some of them. Right? Except that it's going to be a fitna for some of them. Tayyib. And so, these people, they come and they ask questions about things that didn't have any benefit. So a man asked a question like this to Imam Malik on one occasion. Imam Malik, he said, لَعَلَكَ مِنْ أَصْحَابِ عَمْرِ بِنْ عُبَيْدٍ. He said, maybe you're one of Amr bin Ubayd's friends. لَعَنَ اللَّهُ Amr bin Ubayd. May Allah curse him. Think about that. ثَنَاءٌ عَاتِرٌ. In the beginning of his life, Hasan al-Basri. People don't raise people and they don't lower people. Allah raises and lowers people, right? The beginning of his life, beautiful praise from a scholar. He was the best of all of the youth of Islam, alive on the earth. By the time he died, the best of the scholars were asking Allah to curse him. Because he became astonished with himself. He deviated, right? The same thing happened, and throughout the next couple of 100 years, as we heard, al-Khattabi rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that this was the fitna, that the people, they didn't want themselves to look like normal people. They didn't want to be like the rest of the Muslims. They want to be from the khawas, they want to be from the elites, they want to be from people who had something that nobody else had. Right? And some of the salaf, they said, من تتبع الشواذ يعني شواذ المسائل فقد تزندق. The person who's always looking for strange issues, this person is going to become a heretic. Right? The person, he always wants something deep and complex and so on and so forth. And those basic things that he's been told about his religion, the basic issues of knowledge, so on and so forth, he hasn't internalized them yet. He hasn't been affected by them. Right? But he wants something that nobody else has. This is the definition of ujub with some of the salaf. They said, al-ujub an tara an ta'lam shay'an la or ta'rifu shay'an la ya'rifuhu ghayruk. And ujub, astonishment, is that you think that you know something nobody else knows. You think that you know something nobody else knows. Right? Is that the way of the salaf? The way of the salaf, they want to know things and have a monopoly over the knowledge and have it all for themselves and nobody else knows it. What did the Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala say? he said, Wallahi la wadidtu. He said, Wallahi, I will love أن يتعلم الناس هذا العلم ولا ينسب إلي منه شيئا. Or shay'un. He said, Wallahi, I wish people will learn this knowledge and not a single issue of knowledge will be attributed to me. And nothing of knowledge will be attributed to me. Right? So this is something that is an important lesson to take to heart. And a waqfa. And a moment to take some pause and reflect. And pertaining the things connected to this fitna. The Shaykh Ahmad al-Najmi rahimahullah ta'ala, he said in his Ta'liqat al-Athariyya ala al-Aqeedah al-Wasitiyya, and this is the Shaykh quoting himself from other books, simplifying for himself his explanation of Aqeedah al-Raazeeyayn, just mentioning what he mentioned in other places that was beneficial, that he carefully thought out and wrote. He said about the statement of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala that is like the statement of al-Raazeeyayn, this unbroken chain of belief, that from al-Iman billah wa kutubih, from belief in Allah and His books. From belief in Allah and His books is the belief that the Qur'an is the speech of Allah, munazzal ghayru makhluq, sent down as revelation by Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, uncreated. Al-Iman, Shaykh Ahmad al-Najmi said, Al-Iman bi anna al-Qur'an kalam Allah munazzal ghayru makhluq, yajibu an ya'taqid al-Muslimu hadha fi nafsihi. He said the belief that the Qur'an is the uncreated, revealed speech of Allah sent down for the guidance of mankind is mandatory for the Muslim to believe within himself. وَيَتَلَفَّظُ بِهَذَا, and it is mandatory for him to utter and call to مُبَيِّنًا عَقِيدَتَهُ, and to clarify his belief بِأَنَّ الْقُرْآنَ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ مُنَزَّلٌ غَيْرُ مَخْلُوقٍ, that the Qur'an is the uncreated speech of Allah. وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, and the proof of that is the statement of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala in Surah At-Tawbah, the verse that we heard, verse number 6. وقد قال صلى الله عليه وسلم وقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في وصف رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم الذين يتبعون الرسول النبي الأمي الذي يجدونه مكتوبا عندهم في التوراة والإنجيل. And they are those who follow the messenger, the prophet who is unlettered, that they find written about في التوراة والإنجيل, in the Torah and the Injil. وقوله تعالى قُلْ لَوْ كَانَ الْبَحْرُ مِدَادًا لِكَلِمَاتِ رَبِّي لَنَفِدَ الْبَحْرُ قَبْلَ أَن تَنْفَدَ كَلِمَاتُ رَبِّي. Say that if the oceans were ink to write the speech of my Lord, then the ocean would be exhausted before the speech of my Lord is exhausted. And this is verse number 109 in Surah Al-Kahf, meaning that the oceans are created and the speech of Allah is uncreated. And so if the oceans were used as ink to write the speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala that He spoke with, then of course the oceans will be exhausted and used up before the speech of Allah, the eternal unending speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is written. وَقَوْلِهِ ta'ala, such as the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, نَزَلَ بِهِ الرُّوحُ الْأَمِينَ عَلَى قَلْبِكَ لِتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُنذِرِينَ. In the last verse is 109 of Surah Al-Kahf. Allah tabarak wa ta'ala says here in verse number 193 through 195 of Surah Ash-Shu'ara, نَزَلَ بِهِ الرُّوحُ الْأَمِينَ, that the Ruh al-Amin, the trustworthy Ruh, meaning Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, came down with it, and he brought it down as revelation. عَلَى قَلْبِكَ لِتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُنذِرِينَ, and he upon your heart so that you could be from the warners. This is an evidence that the Qur'an is brought down. That the Qur'an is brought down because there are two issues, that it is uncreated and that it is sent down by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sent down as revelation by Allah wa ta'ala. Likewise in Surah Taha, وَكَذَلِكَ أَنزَلْنَاهُ قُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا, likewise we have revealed it as an Arabic Qur'an. وَصَرَّفْنَا فِيهِ مِنَ الْوَعِيدِ, and we have placed our threat of punishment all throughout it. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ, so that perhaps there may be of those who behave in a way that protects them from Allah's punishment. أَوْ يُحْدِثُ لَهُمْ ذِكْرًا, or perhaps it will bring about within them some remembrance of what will benefit them within themselves. فَهَذِهِ الْآيَاتُ تَدُلُّ عَلَىٰ أَنَّ الْقُرْآنَ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ. These verses demonstrate to us that the Qur'an is the speech of Allah, مُنَزَّلْ غَيْرُ مَخْلُوقٍ, that it is sent down, revealed by Allah, sent down from Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, uncreated. فَمَنْ زَعَمَ أَنَّهُ مَخْلُوقٌ فَإِنَّهُ قَدْ كَفَرَ. The one who claims that the Qur'an is created, then he has disbelieved. وَلِذَلِكَ فَإِنَّ السَّلَفَ رحمهم الله تعالى قد أطلقوا الكفر على من زعم أن القرآن مخلوق. For this reason, the Salaf have labeled the person who claims that the Qur'an is created as a person of disbelief. لأنه كفر بهذه الآيات التي ذكرناها, because he has disbelieved in these verses that we have mentioned. وغيرها من الآيات, and many other verses that prove that the Qur'an is the speech of Allah. قال أهل السنة والجماعة منه بدأ. He said, and the people of As-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they continue beyond saying that is the uncreated, revealed speech of Allah sent down. They said, minhu bada. Yani, minhu bada, he said, a bada min al-budu, wa huwa al-dhuhur, أو بدأ من البدء الذي هو البداية وعلى كلا المعنيين حق. He said, either we understand what they said, minhu bada, or minhu bada, and with the hamza and the alif. Minhu bada, a budu, a dhuhur, and it emanated from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or bada from al-bada, and from began, the meaning of the word began, and it originated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, emanated, came from, was manifested by, and originated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Both meanings are true. إِذْ إِنَّ الْقُرْآنَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ مِنْهُ خَرَجْ أَيْ تَكَلَّمَ بِهِ subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning that the Qur'an is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that emanated from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He spoke with. وَقَوْلُهُ وَإِلَيْهِ يَعُودُ, and the statement of the Salaf, وَإِلَيْهِ يَعُودُ, and that it will go back to Him. أي أنه يعود إلى الله حين يرفع من المصاحف ومن الصدور فلا يقدر أحد على كلمة منه وهذا يكون في آخر الزمان قبل قيام الساعة. Meaning that it will return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the time that it is taken from the masahif and from the chest of the people, to the point that no one will be able to recite a single word of the Qur'an, meaning in the end of times before the final hour. وَقَوْلُهُ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ تَكَلَّمَ بِهِ حَقِيقَةً. As for the statement of Ibn Taymiyyah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke the Qur'an literally, spoke the Qur'an. هَذَا فِيهِ رَدٌّ عَلَى مَنْ زَعَمَ أَنَ الْقُرْآنِ حِكَايَةٌ عَنْ كَلَامِ اللَّهِ. This is a refutation of those who say that the Qur'an is a hikayah عن كلام الله, and that it is a hikayah, a mimicry, and a resemblance, a parroting, if you will, of the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a person just repeating what Allah said, but it is not the speech of Allah. And it is a repeating of the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a mimicking of the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, وَرَدٌّ عَلَى مَنْ زَعَمَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ خَلَقَهُ فِي الشَّجَرَةِ حِينَ كَلَّمَ مُوسَى. And a refutation against those who say that Allah created His speech in the burning bush. When He spoke to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, that He created speech external to Himself subhanahu wa ta'ala in the burning bush when He spoke to Musa. فَلِهَذَا قَالَ الْمُؤَلِّفِ. For this reason the author said, وَأَنَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ الَّذِي أَنزَلَهُ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ صلى الله عليه وسلم هو كلام الله حقيقة لا كلام غيره. And they believe that the Qur'an that Allah sent down to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a literal speech of Allah and not the speech of anyone else. الْكَلَامُ صِفَةٌ مِنْ صِفَاتِ اللَّهِ. Meaning they say that the speech, that is the speech of Allah from His attributes. From His attributes, tabarak wa ta'ala. وأهل السنة إذا عرفوا الكلام الذي هو كلام الله يقولون فيه قديم النوع حادث الآحاد. When Ahl Sunnah defines the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they say that the speech of Allah in its category is eternal. And meaning the speech of Allah, Allah speaking is something eternal. Allah has always spoken and will always speak subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hadithul ahad. But the individual things that are said by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala come about as Allah says them subhanahu wa ta'ala. يعني أن صفة الكلام هي صفة لله عز وجل. Meaning that the attribute of speech is the attribute of Allah عز وجل قديم بقدمه وأنه جل وعلا يتكلم متى شاء وكيف شاء. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that His speech has existed with Him for eternity. And that He tabarak wa ta'ala speaks whenever He wills, with whatever He wills, وَإِذَا شَاءَ, وأن إلها لا يتكلم فإنه يعتبر جمادا كيف يكون إلها من لا يتكلم. And a deity that does not speak is like an inanimate object. So if you worship a deity that you don't believe speak, it's like you're worshiping an inanimate object. He said, how can something be considered a deity that does not speak? How can something be considered a deity that does not speak? لَقَدْ دَخَلَ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ أَقْوَامٌ يَكِيدُ لِأَهْلِهِ. People over the course of time entered into Islam to plot against its people. They entered into Islam to conspire against the Muslims. فَزَعَمُوا لَهُمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُوصَفُ بِأَنَّهُ مُتَكَلِّمٌ. Some of them said that it is not possible to describe Allah as one who speaks. It is not possible to describe Allah as one who speaks. لِأَنَّ إِذَا وَصَفْنَاهُ بِأَنَّهُ مُتَكَلِّمٌ فَقَدْ شَبَّحْنَاهُ بِخَلْقِهِ. Because if we did that, we would be saying that Allah is like His creation, because the creation speaks. And so, if the creation speaks and Allah speaks, then we are saying that Allah is like His creation. And we've heard this argument many times in the Aqeedah classes. Well, Allah exists and the creation exists. So to say Allah exists is comparing Allah to His creation. Allah has knowledge, and His creation has knowledge. His knowledge is not like the knowledge of the creation. Just like His speech is not like the speech of the creation. Look at the statement of the Salaf. He said, the statement of Uthman, الفرق بين كلام الخالق وكلام المخلوقين كالفرق بين الخالق والمخلوقين. The difference between the speech of the Creator and the speech of the creation is like the difference between the Creator and the creation. Some of the Salaf, they said, ذكر الناس داء وذكر الله دواء. Mentioning the people is a disease, and mentioning Allah is a cure. وَلَا يُذْكَرُ اللَّهُ بِأَحْسَنَ مِنْ كَلَامِهِ. And Allah is not mentioned with anything more beautiful than His speech, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the affair is tremendous, that a person would try to use such a faulty argument. But we know, right, that in our time, and this has been the case in every time, that there are many, many, many Muslims who don't know their elbow from their knee and don't know a stick from an aleph, right? And who just, يَمِيلُونَ مَعَ كُلِّ رِيحٍ لَا يَرْكَنُونَ إِلَى رُكْنٍ وَثِيقٍ, as Ali radiallahu anhu described them. And they get bent by every wind that blows, bends them, right? They don't have anything firm to hold on to. They don't have strength in their religion. They don't have strength in their religion. So there are some people that all you have to do is make an argument, and they tap out. I agree with you. Another person comes and he makes an argument. Imam Malik, what did he say? أَوَ كُلَّمَا جَاءَنَا رَجُلٌ هُوَ أَجْدَلُ مِنْ رَجُلٍ أَتَرَكْنَا مَا جَاءَ بِهِ جِبْرِيلُ مُحَمَّدٍ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. Every time a man comes who has the ability to argue a little stronger than another man, do you think that we're going to abandon what Jibreel brought to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam because he's a better arguer? Because he caught you off guard and said something that you didn't know the answer to? Person staying up all night for days on end, thinking how to trip the people up. He comes to you with a bunch of shubuhat that you never heard before. That's why when it comes to the people of innovation, a person plugs his ears. He doesn't give any attention to them, right? This is a serious affair. Some people, they came and they said it's not possible to say that Allah speaks. It's not possible to say that Allah speaks. لِأَنَّ إِذَا وَصَفْنَاهُ بِأَنَّهُ مُتَكَلِّمٌ فَقَدْ شَبَّحْنَاهُ بِخَلْقِهِ. Because if we said that, we would be saying Allah is like His creation, because they speak. And that was enough for some people to say, okay, where do I sign up? وَلَا يَجُوزُ أَن نَصِفَهُ بِأَنَّ لَهُ يَدًا. And they said it's not permissible for us to say likewise that Allah has a hand or hands. Because if we were to say that, then we would be saying that Allah is like His creation. Despite the fact that Allah tabarak wa ta'ala described Himself that He spoke to some of His messengers, speaking to His messengers. Allah Jalla wa Ala, He said, تِلْكَ الرُّسُلْ فَضَّلْنَا بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ مِنْهُمْ مَنْ كَلَّمَ اللَّهِ. These are the messengers of Allah. We gave some of them superiority and virtue and merit over others. And some of them Allah spoke directly to. Some of them Allah spoke directly to. فأخبر أن الله كلم بعض الرسل. Allah informed that He spoke directly to some of His messengers. ومن قال بأنه يخلق الكلام في غيره فهو مبتدع ضال. And whoever says that Allah creates His speech in something else, that Allah creates His speech external to Himself. This was a statement of some of the innovators. They say, oh no, we say that Allah speaks, but it's not an attribute from His attributes, it's a creation from His creations. And they said the same thing about all of Allah's actions. They negated, we heard this in the last book that we studied less than a month ago, in the Nuniyah of Ibn Qayyim, the Tawheed of the Prophets and the Messengers. They said that the af'al of Allah is maf'ulat. That what is meant by the actions of Allah, they said Allah doesn't have actions, right? They said Allah doesn't have actions, but rather those things that we think are actions, that it sounds like Allah is saying are actions, they're really Allah's works. And so Allah doesn't have an action of mercy and providing, but rather what is meant by mercy and providing is the created thing that is His mercy, and the created thing that is His provision. That is what is meant by rizq. That is what is meant by nasr. It doesn't mean that Allah has an action of actually helping people. It means that He has a created thing. It's not an attribute from His attributes, but it's from His possessed creations, the things that He possesses subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this was the statement of the Ash'a'ira about the actions of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. And it is that which they were led to because of this issue. Because of this issue, negating that the Qur'an is the uncreated speech of Allah. He said, no, it's Allah's speech, but it's not like you think. O Ahl Sunnah. It's not like you think. But rather it is something that was created external to Himself, subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Muslim, when he recites the book of Allah, tabarak wa ta'ala, better than that. When a Muslim recites the book of Allah, tabarak wa ta'ala, of a person possessed by a devil, right? See the effect that it has upon that person. See the effect that it has upon the devil. The speech of Allah, tabarak wa ta'ala. The speech of Allah, tabarak wa ta'ala, has a tremendous impact upon that devil, right? The speech of Allah, tabarak wa ta'ala, has a tremendous impact upon the heart of the person, upon the human being. And he make the issue trivialize and to water down the issue. And he had to make the issue an issue of philosophy and so on and so forth is a great injustice to the status of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the premier issue, the foremost issue when a person reads the book of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, that he is reading the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That he is reading the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before he utters a harf, he begins by seeking refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala min ash-shaytan ar-rajim. And then he recites what he knows is the speech of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, revealed by Allah tabarak wa ta'ala upon the heart of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This was the belief of the earliest generations of Islam. Now think about the latter generations of Islam. Because if you can assign a different meaning to the essence of what you're reciting, you assign a whole different meaning to it. That means that everything that you're reciting is fair game too. If what you're reciting itself, before you even started to recite, you assigned a whole different meaning to it. Oh, this is not literally the speech of Allah, right? That's something for simpletons. That's something for small-minded people, right? It really means something else much more complex. That when a person recites the Qur'an, verse after verse after verse after verse after verse, these people have this innovation. This is their approach to the Qur'an. Oh, Allah said here in this verse that He is Rahimun Ghafoor, but Rahmah doesn't really mean Rahmah. Maghfirah doesn't really mean Maghfirah. Love doesn't really mean love. Allah hating something doesn't really mean hate. This doesn't mean this doesn't mean this, it means something else. And this is the beginning of the end. This is the beginning of the decline of the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So for a person to say that these things are non-issues, of saying, why do the people of Sunnah more than 1,000 years later get worked up about these things? These are issues of wala and bara. They are issues that separate the men from the boys. They are issues that separate the people of Sunnah from the people of innovation and the people of kufr. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala an yuthabbitana wa iyyakum ala ma yuhibbu wa yarda, to keep us and you firm upon what He loves and is pleased with. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. If there are any questions, save them.